All right, good morning. We are going to get started. So, this morning's talk is called Beyond Our Worst. And so, we're going to start by talking about one of my favorite movies. We're in a movie theater. Makes sense. Has anyone here ever watched Coach Carter? Okay, it's one of my favorite movies. Brief synopsis, there is this coach who's asked by one of his friends to coach a boys basketball team, high school team at a school. And he's very just unwilling to do it, but he gets convinced by his friend, and so he ends up coaching the team. And this team is a bunch of boys who have so much potential, but they're struggling. They're struggling in every aspect of their life. And so this coach becomes more than a coach. And throughout practice, throughout this whole movie, we have this coach speaking to this one particular player. And he keeps on asking him the question, what is your deepest fear? And the student's like, I don't know what you want to tell me. What would you want me to tell you? And so he just goes on playing, or the coach will ask him again, what is your deepest fear? And the student will say something like spiders. He just says something ridiculous, and the coach gets frustrated. He's like, what is your deepest fear throughout the whole movie? And we get to the final game. We get to the finals. They're playing, and the coach is about to put him in a really important point of the game, and he says, what's your deepest fear? And the student responds, my deepest fear, and we're going to get back to that at the end of the talk. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is our deepest fear? And I think there are a lot of different things we can kind of explore with this question. There's a lot that we do fear. We fear more things than just one. But today, we're going to explore one particular part, and that is going to be in John 8. So if you've ever read John, you may have noticed there's this notice in the Bible saying that this passage isn't found in the earliest manuscripts. So this wasn't written, and this wasn't part of the original manuscript. And that's true. Like, this story isn't found in the oldest copies that John wrote. But what is true is that the story has been preserved and passed down by early church for a very long time. The earliest mentioning of this story, it was back in 60 AD. So it's not like it was added significantly later. People have been talking about it for a really long time. The church was discussing it. The ethos of this message, the ethos of the story has been talked about and discussed. But sometimes this story is found in different places in John, and other times it's found in a completely different book, in the book of Luke. The story was definitely circulating, and I think the most important part is that even though it wasn't originally added, it wasn't written in the beginning, in this particular place in John 8, it reflects the character and heart of Jesus, and that's why we still talk about it. That's why it's still important, and that's why we keep it. So whether this story was originally written by John or preserved as an early source, there is so much of here that is consistent with the heart of God, and we're going to talk about why it matters today. So it says, then they all went home, but Jesus went to the Mount of Olives at dawn. He appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. And Jesus said, teacher, oh, sorry, that does not say that. I apologize. Then while Jesus is teaching, in the middle of him teaching, the religious scholars and the Pharisees, what they do is they grab this woman that they found and they throw her they break through the crowd, and in the middle of the temple court, they throw her in front of Jesus and says that, teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. This woman who has just been outed in front of a bunch of people, highly likely strangers, but religious leaders, and this teacher, she's disheveled, She's just been dragged across town. She's naked and ashamed. And they made her stand before Jesus and all of these people in the temple court. Now, what's interesting is that they said, we found this woman caught in adultery. What I find interesting is that adultery, it takes two to tango, but there's only one person here. And it's interesting because somehow the Pharisees caught two people in an act. Somehow they were at this location where this rendezvous supposedly happened. And somehow they grabbed the woman, but they didn't grab the guy. And she is here in this moment alone and humiliated. I would say that might be one of my deepest fears. Being thrown out, just outed in front of people. My deepest secret in front of everyone. Just watching. But see, the Pharisees, the scribes, the religious people, the people who, if this would have really mattered, they would have taken this to the side. They would have done this in secret. If they were really curious about what Jesus was thinking, instead of just throwing her, they would have pulled him aside and asked, but they didn't, because they didn't care about this woman's dignity. They aired it out publicly. What this was here in this moment, this was a performance. And so they wanted, it says, scripture says, that the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, what do you say? What do you say about this woman? What do you say about her and her worst moments? See, when they asked, what do you say? This whole thing, it was a trap. See, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law for several chapters throughout the Gospels, they've been trying to stop this movement of Jesus. They've been trying to slow down what Jesus has been doing because he was causing such a stir with his talks about forgiveness, grace, and mercy. This idea of living differently. This idea that it goes beyond just our acts, it goes into our hearts, and how that demands more of us. And he was healing people, and people were traveling from everywhere just to hear and see him. So if they could just get Jesus to focus on the worst moment of her life, then maybe, just maybe, they could slow his momentum. See, if Jesus said she should not be stoned, it would discredit him for claiming to fulfill the law. And then they would have a place to say, see, he's not who he says he is. But if Jesus said she should be stoned, it would also ruin his message of grace and mercy. And then his movement would lose that momentum. People would walk away from him. So they were trying to trap him. Either way, Jesus would lose. But instead of responding, Jesus bends down and he starts writing on the ground with his finger. In the middle of everything, he just gets low. And he's not scared. He's not frustrated. He's just calm and starts writing on the ground with his finger. And this woman is waiting for Jesus' response. What is he going to do? What is he going to say? Does it all end here at this moment? Because the law says I should be stoned. But according to the law of Moses, and this is the really important part that we have to know about this particular aspect of the story, is that if a case is justified against a person, such as this woman, there needed to be two witnesses to what happened, who had to see the same exact things at the same exact time with the same exact details, with little to no deviation. That's what would have had to happen in that day in order for someone to be considered guilty. And so they're saying this, and what makes this is virtually impossible to happen to this woman without this situation being staged or plotted. So what I'm trying to say is that in order for the Pharisees and the teachers of the law to have caught this woman, they staged it. They manipulated everything. Because there is no way they could have found this woman and then the man is gone. So many things had to happen perfectly in order for this to happen. So the religious leaders had to break many laws just to catch this woman, breaking one. And she was likely lured for the sole purpose of trapping Jesus, to bait him. They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. With evil intent, they placed this woman's life in Jesus' hands. This is the worst of her. This is her worst moment, Jesus. What do you say about her? Who is she? What do you say? Because everyone's listening. You are this mouthpiece of God. What does God say about this person? They were trying to trap him. And not only just this political moment, but it was about her life. What did her life mean to Jesus? We have no idea what he wrote in the sand. It's the only time in Scripture that Jesus writes. But we do know that he's there in that moment. And it says, when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and he said to them, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. When he finally straightened up, he challenged those in the temple. Those of you who have no guilty, those of you who are without a guilty conscience about this, those of you who are without sin, and those of you without a hand in this situation, go ahead, fulfill the law, judge her. And then it says that verse 8 says that he stooped down and he continued writing. He was completely unbothered by this. But the most beautiful part is that her sin didn't scare him. Their noise didn't shake him. God is not intimidated by your sin. He is not unsettled by your doubts. He is not overwhelmed by your past. There is nothing that you have done. There is nothing that you will do that will push him so far away that he can't reach you through his grace. There is nothing so bad that you can do that he will not love you and that will keep him away. One of the things that I feel like we do in our life is we live like God is fragile. That our failures are too much for him. That our doubts are too big, and so you can't doubt. And if you doubt, you kind of keep some of that to yourself. That our brokenness is too much for him. And that if we shake him just enough, that we can do everything that he's holding together, just because our stuff is too big for him. And sometimes when things are said about him, we feel like we need to protect him as if he needs protecting. Because again, he's fragile. We try to protect him from this world. We try to even protect him from ourselves. But he doesn't. He doesn't need it. And maybe that's why Jesus responds the way that he does here. Not with panic, not under pressure. While all of this is happening, while people are forcing him to make a choice, to make a decision, while she is standing here wondering, questioning, what's going to happen to me? He kneels. And he starts writing. He's in that moment. He's still. And it says, "Let any of you without sin cast the first stone." That lingers in the air. And one by one, all of the teachers and the Pharisees start filing out and they start walking away. See, they try to ensnare him. But when you force God with two options, he creates a third. You can't force his hand. And the path that Jesus took didn't just spare this woman. It forced her accusers to confront their own guilt instead of hiding behind hers. See, imagine this woman after everyone has just walked away. It says, at this, those who heard began to go away one at a time. The older ones first, until only Jesus was left with this woman still standing there. Everyone in the temple court left. And this woman, faced by all the accusations of the leaders and the eyes and the whispers of the crowd that she was just dealing with, I can assure you the loudest voice there was the one in her own head, the one in her inner world, filled with shame and regret. And for many of us, we know this voice all too well. The heavy weight of our inner world crushing in on us. Of all the things we should have done, of all the things we should have said, of all the things we would have, should have, could have. We know those moments, lying in bed, trying to get to sleep, and the thought pops up, and you weren't trying to think about it, and it just lingers, and then you start ruminating on it. See, these stones are thrown from others, from the enemy, and they're also thrown from within, forcing us to think about and ruminate on all the worst parts of who we are. And in those moments, sometimes we can find ourselves suffocating. We're paralyzed by this guilt and shame, unable to forgive ourselves. See, up until this point, no one had talked to this woman. They found her in the middle of tangoing. They grabbed her and dragged her across the street. They broke through the crowd and pushed her in front of everyone. And while the crowd is, whatever it is that they're doing, cheering or being very judgmental, and these leaders are just accusing and airing out everything, she's there. And no one's talking to her. No one's asking her anything. But Jesus at this moment looks at her. This is the first time anyone is saying or acknowledging her personally. And he says, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" And this word woman in the Greek it's a term of endearment and respect. It's what he uses when he addresses his mom. And so he says, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir." "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus said. "Go now and leave your life of sin." Jesus isn't just removing condemnation. He's restoring her dignity. She is a human. She is a person. She is a woman. We don't know whether she's a mom or a sister, but we know she's a daughter. She is someone. And it doesn't matter about anything else but that she's a person and she has dignity. And in that moment, because no one had asked her anything, he asks her a question, "Where are they?" And he restores her voice. She's able to respond, no one. And he restores her identity, saying, neither do I condemn you. Now go and leave your life of sin. Some of us knows what it feels like to believe we're not enough. And that's where she was. And so he restores dignity. He restored her voice, and he restored her identity. And it's important because what happens when Jesus speaks a different identity over you, over the one that you believe, over the one that you ruminate and that haunts you? What happens when God sees something in you that you don't see in yourself? Being caught in our own act, sometimes in our life, we're trapped. Sometimes people point fingers, and sometimes we feel like we're getting stoned. We have these different moments in our lives where shame pops up, and it's hard because we're trapped in it and we get stuck. In the movie, Coach Carter, at the game, I remembered the coach didn't ask this time. He was just going to let him play. And the student went up to him and said, "Coach, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure." And it's a very, very, very long quotation. I'm going to cut it up for this particular part. And yes, sometimes I do feel like for some of us, or at different times in our life, sometimes we do feel like it's not that we are inadequate, but maybe that this idea of we are powerful beyond measure is really just the responsibility that comes with stepping into this. But other times, our deepest fears are being known for our worst moments, being identified as our worst moments. But this is the part that I really want to focus on, this quotation. You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve this world. We were born to make manifest, to make reality the glory of God that is within us. And it's not in some of us. It's in all of us. It's in everyone. And here's a part that's important, because as we let these parts of our lives, if we stay stuck in these moments, if we stay ruminating on these things that hold us back, hold us to our worst parts of ourselves, our mistakes, where we identify, then we can't let our light shine. Because as we let our light shine, as we move in who God created us to be, we unconsciously give other people permission to be the same. We give people the permission to walk in that light. And as we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. See, the same voice that said, "Neither do I condemn you," this voice is calling out to you that you are created in his image, that you are created in such a way and that you are not your mistake. Jesus doesn't deny her sin, but he refuses to define her by it. Jesus doesn't deny our mistakes and our mess ups and the worst parts of us. He doesn't deny that we have them, but he refuses to define you by those moments. And so you shouldn't define yourself by those moments. God sees beyond your worst moments and calls you who you were created to be. That's the point of this talk. That is the point of the woman caught in adultery, is that, yes, we will make mistakes, but you are not defined by those mistakes. You are not what you did years ago. You are not the mistake that happened. You are not what you continue to hold on to and let go, what you allow to anchor your life. You are free from it. And the sooner you acknowledge that and walk in that spirit and walk in that truth, the sooner the people around you are free to step into what God has also created them to be. Because we are reflections of God. We are his children. We are created in his image. So this morning, whatever it is that you might be holding on to, whatever moment, whatever thing that has been sticky in your life, that's been in the back of your head, would you let that go and recognize that he calls you to be who you were created to be? Amen.